Alright guys, what's going on? Welcome to a brand new series documenting the complete rebuild of a S15 race car. Now this is my good friend Dylan here, and it's his build. He'll go over all the technical stuff.
So basically, some friends and I put together a really good S15 that was awesome and great in every way. But for whatever which reason, because I don't know if it like punishment or what it is, I decided building a whole new car for 2017 instead of changing the look of my 2016 car was a better option. So through a few odd series of events, I ended up with a slightly damaged S15 Spec R. Today we're going to take the engine out of it and get it ready to get caged and really put the hammer down. When I like to take apart a car in like a big way like this instead of just a small normal little job, I like to just get everything that I know I'm going to need together instead of running back and forth or trying to find it in my big mess of a shop, which is usually how it goes. So usually use this whiteboard, make a list. So basically to remove anything from this car aside from a few small specific fasteners, you need a 10, a 12, a 13, a 14, 17 and 19, a adjustable wrench or a French wrench here in Canada, a 21 millimeter, a Phillips screwdriver, a flat screwdriver, a pry bar, and some extensions, and probably a good hammer if your stuff's rusty, or a torch. Aside from that, you can basically take apart an entire S chassis with a toolkit that you could buy at your local AutoZone, Canadian Tire, basically anywhere that sells tools. For less than $100, you could really take your car apart yourself in your driveway with some jack stands and a jack. So don't ever think that tools are going to limit you, because it's really, they're simple cars and you can do it too. I don't do this all myself, naturally. Ian, most of all, does basically everything that I don't do. He drives the truck for me, he makes sure I don't lose everything, which I do all the time, and basically makes everything go smoothly when I make it go poorly. And then there's Rob, he's comic relief generally. He just shouts expletives everywhere and whatever.
Dicks!
Yeah, see? It happens all the time. Always take the hood off first, it makes life a lot easier.
Hood studs? What?
That's what your mom calls me.
You're a hood stud.
Watch the fucking windshield.
Okay, where's it going?
Roof. On the roof. Removing the power steering lines will always result in an enormous mess, regardless of how well of a job you do. Try not to make a mess. It will always be an enormous disaster. So put a drain pan under your car, just so you can try, because none of it will actually get caught by the drain pan. Yeah, the side mount intercooler is always a complete pain in the ass, and I take it apart a different way every time. So I can't really be of any assistance here.
Hey, they named this fucking ECU code after you.
Me?
No, Rob.
Really?
Yeah.
Picture didn't happen.
Give me a second.
QT.
Usually some pliers are a good way to loosen a crusty rad hose. I called you a crusty rad hose. kind of an odd part to find on one of these cars, the factory recirculate valve, aka blow-off valve. Basically, every single one of these cars has an aftermarket blow-off valve. Surprisingly, aside from this one, with bone stock. So, the guy that bought the engine wanted all the stuff he gets. Below the fuse box, especially on a 14 or a 15, there's a big mess of plugs here. And they're always usually greasy and gross. Luckily on this car they're not, but definitely wear gloves for this job if you're doing this on any car that actually has any kind of mileage on it. Yeah, so a lot of you probably are wondering, how the hell do I get this bracket out? And there's hidden bolts in the wheel well. And that is how it comes out. Never really understood why they made all these brackets for this. But this ABS pump was never ever going to go anywhere. Will it come out now? Or are we missing more brackets? Hey, right to the garbage bin. Some good angled pliers are always good for getting these heater core lines. If you don't have a set, you should have some anyway. And if they don't want to come off, just keep twisting and massaging them until they come off. Keep in mind we already drained the coolant. If you didn't by now, you definitely remember that you did. On an S13, these are brass, so you have to be extra careful not to squish them with a pair of pliers. These plastic ones are a little bit stronger, and that is prone to getting pinched or cracked. However, being plastic, you do have to remember to be really careful with them. So now that we've got all the stuff from the top, you have to go up. Get the exhaust, drain the transmission, drive shaft, all that fun stuff, which we'll see in a second. On most 240s, you'll see this awful switch. Usually they're broken off, or usually they'll turn into dust, or they won't come off. If you have to cut it, you gotta cut it. Luckily this one came apart though. Now with these bolts, patience is everything. You try to get it off with a big breaker bar, you're gonna just snap them off. So you're gonna have to go backwards, forwards, and sometimes give some heat or like a penetrating oil, that sort of thing, to get these off. No matter how clean the car is, they're always a pain in the ass to get off. Patience is everything. No, be careful, because that's a hot nut. So there's a couple ways you can do this. Getting rid of your exhaust hangers. Usually they're rusty, crusty, and awful. A little bit of lubricant goes a long way, so. Spray all this shit before you take it apart. There's lots of them. Now, I'll do it with a fancy tool. This is a Blue Point exhaust hanger tool, which makes this really easy. Now, you probably don't have that tool, so use a pry bar. As you can see, that tool makes it really easy. Hey, it finally came off. You had a chance to buy one of these? Buy it. It makes life really easy. There's another hanger at the front there off the transmission. It is to note, if you're putting aftermarket downpipe or whatever on there, make sure you use that, because whatever exhaust manifold you have, gaskets, everything else, the reason they blow out is because people don't use that. I don't care if you have flexes or this or that, if you don't have a transmission bracket, you're always going to lose gaskets, and it's a really, really bad time replacing that shit all the time. If you've done it once, you won't do it again. Having such a low mileage car like this really does help with fasteners that don't want to come out, but exhausting. The guy that bought the drivetrain from this also bought the diff. So these little bolts, they're 12 mil, are always really hard to get. So if you need a little bit of extra leverage, stick a wrench in the end. It does help to have somebody in the car either holding the brakes or the parking brake, so you can rotate this around so that you're not trying to turn the whole drivetrain along with it. See, these are always tight too. So you don't have a long wrench like me. If for whatever reason these get stripped or whatever, you might need to remove the sway bar, but you can get a grinder in there usually without killing yourself. If your axles or whatever are already undone, or you have no way to stop your wheels for whatever reason, you can stick a pry bar inside the U-joint so you can hold on to it while you're loosening it.
Ooh, that catch.
Yeah, that catch though.
Holy shit.
Can't do that twice. Now it's a good idea to do the back bolts off the diff before you undo the hanger bearing. Now you'll notice that there's another set of bolts similar to the ones that we had to remove on the diff here at the front from the center drive shaft. Don't touch those. It makes it extra hard to do everything else once you remove those. So take it all apart as a complete assembly. You're taking the engine out. There's no sense in creating any extra work for yourself. On S14s and S15s they have this weird drive shaft loop thing, which is a good idea, but I've never ever seen somebody break a drive shaft like that anyhow. When doing this, always have somebody else to help you support it. Sometimes you're gonna have to move it forward, get it down, and then slide it out. You'll notice that no fluid came out. That's because we already drained the transmission. Have a drain pan, because if you make that mess and get it on yourself, you're gonna smell it for a week.
Those are clothes that you're going to throw in the garbage.
Yeah. Now with this tranny bracket, it's always a good idea to put one of these bolts in a little bit loose so you can get it under the car once it's down on the ground. Be nice and gentle when they come out. You also notice that all the fluids that you thought you had out will also come out when the engine starts up. On a Spec R, these braces are what makes it the chassis of Spec R. They're basically good for smashing off shit and getting in your way. So, because this is a Spec R, we're taking it off.
JDM garbage. Wow.
Because this car's right-hand drive, it doesn't really have the same issues you'd have as removing a KA or SR or whatever from a left-hand drive chassis, which most of you are probably more used to. For you to be able to clear your turbo elbow, which is obviously on the other side, you'd have to remove the steering shaft or drop the subframe. I personally like to remove the steering joint, which a good way to do it is spray a bunch of lube all over it, loosen the two 12mm nuts, spread it open with a pry bar, and pop it off so you can slide the steering shaft out of the way to clear your turbo elbow without having to remove your subframe and mess with your alignment and break a bunch of bolts. These are relatively easy to get to, and it's an excellent opportunity to take it apart and clean it as well. Now to remove the engine mounts, you're going to need a 14mm bolt and a really long extension. Now a long extension is good, but if you can have multiple ones where you can get a little bit of slack, it makes life a lot easier. So, because you gotta, come around, so you have to sneak past all of this lovely stuff, your subframe, the lower control arm bolt, all that crap. And then the same on the other side. Sometimes that little bit of wobble you can get out of having multiple extensions, or if you have a wobble one like this, saves you from stripping these and then having a really, really bad time.
You don't have to worry about the engine falling out or anything because it sits in the mounts and the bolt keeps it from coming out.
So usually with this you got to go forward and then down and out the back. So forward, and pop the axles out. This is an excellent place to get your hands pinched, so really be aware of what you're doing, because you can lose a finger really easy. Okay, I'm gonna go up. You're good?
Yep.
Always be mindful of the plug on a ABS car. The ABS sensors in the diff, so don't want to break that. If you have bolts that don't have a nut that you want to make sure they don't get lost, zip tie makes an excellent temporary nut. On some engines, there's good provisions to use like a chain or like some kind of like bolted device. For some engines, like on Mazdas and Toyotas, sometimes they have hooks. Nissans, on the other hand, they got nothing. So I like to use a seat belt. They work as very good and free.
Especially when you have a 16-passenger van.
Yeah, my big tow van had a bunch of seat belts after we stripped the interior, so I've been using these for years now. So they work pretty good. You'll notice a lot of scrap yards and even a lot of the importers from Japan, a lot of the engines have seat belts already on. It's kind of a universal thing. Now here I'm going on the exhaust manifold, so it's made of cast iron. Okay. Pull it back. Jack always makes a good helper to push the transmission up, so you can kind of walk it out of the subframe. Every time is different. So far, this one seems to be loving the camera, so it's coming out really easy. Or we're just really good at it.
Camera.
Keep it going. We're good on that side? Yep. Yeah, as you're going up, always check to see if you didn't miss the ground or some stuff's getting caught or you got a wiring harness that's about to burst and smack you in the face.
Load bearing harness.
So far we're pretty good so far.
So far.
So far. Say so far again. Say so far one more.
SR20 Cowboy.
You can tilt the engine out like this.
An engine tilter.
Sometimes you can have an engine tilter or just some idiots. Back the transmission. Go ahead. Up. Note all the water that's still coming out after we drained it. Good for making a big mess.
Imagine doing this back in the day with like a big block.
Yeah. Oh God, there's only like 4 liters of coolant on this thing. Pull the engine towards you. Hold on. Let her down. There we are. Now leaving the engine on the engine stand, just a little, the engine crane, sorry, just a little bit, helps with moving it around. You got a free cart, you might as well use it.
Alright, so that's it guys. I hope you enjoyed the first episode of this whole build series. The SR is out, and many exciting things to come for this thing.